When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning, world, and how are we all? Welcome to episode 146 of Join Up Dots. I've got a lady today who literally can call the world her home, as she has spent her life travelling to different areas, bringing her special talent to everyone she's come in contact with. She's a lady that from an early age knew that she was driven to prove her talents to the world, and of course proved to herself what she could achieve. From being born in Bavaria and then moving to South Africa as a young girl, she recalls her childhood as a time of endless joy and adventure. And it was when she discovered for the first time the inspiring leadership qualities of nature. But instead of staying in this idyllic situation, she made the brave decision to jump across the world and start working for an American corporation that was to be the beginning of the American dream that she wanted so much. But the dream didn't last too long, as after 2 years she realised her true passion was to inspire people across the world with a focus on leadership, change and excellence. From creating a company to selling that company to becoming the first and youngest ever female president of the German DMA to writing 7 books and even excelling in television, she learnt, developed and conquered environments across the business spectrum. So when does she feel that her real self was born, and when did she realise that the leap of faith from corporate America was about to happen? And was she scared of the fall or invigorated by the upcoming challenges? And what would she do differently if she got the chance? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots, the one and only Kerstin Plehwe. How are you, Kerstin?
Hello, David. I'm so happy to be here.
Where are you at the moment? When you say you're happy to be here, because as I was saying in the introduction, you can literally call the world your home, can't you?
Not all of the world, although I love traveling. I love being in different places. But right now I'm sitting in my office in Berlin in Germany.
And what's the weather like there today? Because you're not a million miles away from me in the United Kingdom, and it's a bit grey and dreary here.
This is how actually I have to say I imagine the United Kingdom. I know this is not true, but the weather in Berlin is sunny and mildly warm. Quite nice.
Did you have a sort of stereotype? I'm quite interested because the English people have a stereotype of the Germans. And
I'm sure they do. Yeah. And probably not the best stereotype. I don't have. I hate stereotypes, actually. I hate stereotypes. But, I think every person has a picture of something. Like a picture how the UK people are, the pictures how the Germans are. But if I would use a stereotype of London, for example, I would think, I would catch myself thinking that it rains most of the time. And I know it's not true. London is a beautiful city, but the stereotype, it's a rainy city.
It's not too far from the truth, I'll be honest. And over the last year, I think we've had more rain than anything, and floods and God knows what. So I think that's not a stereotype. I think that's pretty much close to the truth, really, Kerstin.
All right. Well, then you discovered that part for me. I do think, though, that you do have sunny days in London. Come on.
We do. And as long as your mindset's good, it's always sunny, isn't it? I say to my wife, there's no such thing as rain. It's just wet sunshine.
When I moved from Munich to Hamburg, Bavaria is supposed to be very sunny in Germany. And all the people in southern Germany think that Hamburg is such a rainy and foggy city. Nobody would believe that I'm going to Hamburg. But I did, because I sold my company to a company in Hamburg. And off I went. And you know what? I even checked the statistics and found out that there's less rain in millimeters in Hamburg than it is in Bavaria. It just falls at different time frames, which means it rains much more often in Hamburg.
Did you know what amazes me, though, when I'm listening to you talk, is how good your English is? Because the English people, we're not very good on languages at all. Well, why is it the Germans, if I hear a German football player being interviewed after the match, they're always just talking in English. What is it really taught as a big subject in German schools?
Well, you do learn English in school. It's a must, actually. But what I discover most of the time is that the Germans do not feel so comfortable with speaking English. And of course, everybody has the choice between the British how do you call it, Oxford English and the British dialect and the US sort of dialect or pronunciation. And I've worked so much in the US and feel so close to the US in many ways that I guess my pronunciation is more US English than UK, or I mean, you are the judge on this, but I think it's not even the typical German pronunciation of English.
So would sort of local Germans, would they think that you've got an accent? Have you picked up an accent?
I keep hearing when I'm working with clients in the US that they say, gee, you don't have a German accent at all. So I always feel flattered by that. But of course, I'm still German and there's still words missing and I'm still learning. But you do that till you die, so...
Absolutely. So let's sort of take you back in time, because that's what Join Up Dots is all about. So you were born in Bavaria, as we say, and then you moved to South Africa as a young girl. Obviously, that I can assume that it was your parents taking you. But was it a time that you remember actually happening? Do you remember being in Bavaria? What sort of age was it that you moved across?
I was 8 years old. 7 or 8 years old. And I remember moving over very vividly because I loved it from the first second that my foot touched South African ground. And I hated everything that was behind me, which was my young ages in Germany.
What was it that you loved about South Africa then, as soon as you put foot on there?
First of all, I'm a very visual person, and the first thing I remember in South Africa was the sky. Sort of, it seemed to me as a young kid, a very open and sort of endless sky, without borders. I had a big feeling of liberty and of adventure, of course, being in Africa as a young girl. And Germany, to me, at that point, was the opposite. It seemed gray, it seemed limited, and so the adventure was in front of me, and I loved that thought.
Is kind of a change of scenery good for adventure? Did you still feel that when you say, for the first time you went over to America, did you feel that there was adventure to be had just because it was a change of scenery?
Yes, I did feel that, but I'm not sure if it's just the change of scenery. I think it's sort of the scenery is on the outside of yourself, but the emotion is within you. But I do remember vividly the emotion that I had when the first time ever I was working for a US company then, and I was in Seattle, sitting at a fountain in the sunshine, having a coffee, and I saw the American flag, in the sky. Same thing, blue sky and sort of liberty thing. And it was a deep feeling inside of me, again, of adventure and liberty and deep happiness. So yes, the external scenery helps you, I think, feel adventurous, but the real adventure comes with the feelings that you have towards something.
So how do you tap into that? Because you seem to be somebody that embraces adventure and likes the thought of liberty and freedom and all those kind of things. But so many of our listeners are kind of trapped in a mindset of what they have is what they've got, and they're lucky to have that. So where do you get that spirit? Is it something that you were just born with, or is it something you've developed, or were your parents very sort of similar spirited?
My parents are not similar spirited at all, which always wondered me when I was a young kid. Why is this, that I'm so different than my parents? But actually, I am not sure, David, if you're right when you say that, a lot of young people think that where they are, this is it. I actually feel this with older people like myself, that sort of when you grow up after a certain age, you stop to feel adventurous, you stop to dream, you stop to wanting new things and trying out new paths, because over lifetime, especially when you're in a career, you limit yourself, and you limit yourself not because you want to, but it's what comes from the outside. It's the approval from your boss, it's approval from society. All of a sudden you start to feel that you have to be and you have to behave in a certain way that society rewards you. And actually, this is the opposite of adventure, of course, because, if everybody would do that, then we would all be the same, and we would all sort of be alike. And this is not what adventure is. Adventure is following your own path into insecure things and trying out things and making mistakes.
That's interesting that you say that, because I spend a lot of time with youngsters and they seem to, I suppose this is a fault of being a youngster. You think you've got all your life ahead of you. So they're quite easy to flow into positions that are not suitable for them just because it's a job. Oh, I've got years ahead of myself. I can do this, I can do that, whatever. But then those years sort of move on and they haven't made that transition to the life that they want. And this is what this show is all about. It's telling people that, you know, you haven't got limitless time, but you have got limitless opportunities, and it's up to you to make sure that they happen and to take control of your life. So you actually see it differently. You see that the youngsters are more forward thinking and adventurous and free spirited than maybe that I do.
I think it's inside of the youngsters much more than it's inside of grown-ups. The question I think for the young people is how much they dare to trust this inner self, and even, or maybe how much their surrounding, their parents and their friends foster and encourage those feelings. You know, because as I said, when you grow up, you tend to be more outside oriented towards your career, towards your family, etc. And I think it's a great challenge for parents, especially, to try to support this inner spirit of adventure and inspiration that is just a very individual thing.
Well, one of the things that we've touched on in many episodes, Kerstin, is the fact that everybody always says, find your passion, find the thing that lights you up inside. And so many people have trouble finding that. But
yes,
we've kind of discovered that if you look back to your early self, and that's why the tagline of the show is connecting your past to build your future, that actually your passions, your true things, are the things that you loved doing as a kid. And when you look back to your younger self, and I was speaking to a scientist the other day, and they actually said, yes, you're absolutely right. Between the ages of 8 to 14, it's clinically proven that is when you are focused more on the things that light you up inside than at any time in your life. After that, you kind of forget because you've suddenly got exams and qualifications to take, and you start getting on a path which may be not true to yourself. Was that true with you? If we took you back to the early days, are you closely linked really to the things that you loved as a child, and they are the things that still light you up now?
I could not agree more with what you said, David. It's so true that when I look back today to what empowered me or enlightened me as a child, I feel terribly sorry that I haven't followed up on that for such a long time. But you know, sort of being forgiving with yourself when you grow older, you all of a sudden come to a point where you realize all what you have done in your life. Actually, at some point, you understand that those are dots, and they do. If you connect those dots, they do form a line that has brought you exactly to the point where you are right now. So it's good that you have done all the things you've done. But I mean, we'll get to that later on in the show, I know. But I know for sure that I would do things differently when I was younger.
So when you look back on your younger self, because I must admit, I look back on myself a lot now doing this, and I don't beat myself up that I feel that I've wasted so many years, because no experience is wasted, and I like to evidence that on a daily basis. I couldn't be doing this without all the other things that I've done, but this now is linked closely to my little self, and when I look back on it, I think, yeah, you know, that's really me. But it's such a shame, isn't it, that we all have the answers. We all know ourselves better than anyone, but for some reason or other, when you pose that question, what are your passions, you kind of forget, and somehow it's got lost in the midst of time, growing into adulthood and accepting responsibilities and going into this path. And I think it's a crying shame that there's so many people out there that just can't remember their younger self and be able to have that life that they were born to have.
I completely agree. And I have a personal story that I would love to share with you, David. When I got reminded by a person from the outside exactly of that younger self, and I had to, under tears actually, I realized that I had no clue, and that's like 3 years ago now. So I had just hit 40, and I had to realize that I did not have a clue anymore what my younger self had wanted and was passionate about, and this made me so sad, and has troubled me in that moment so intensely that I decided in that second I will search my soul and find out what it was that I was passionate about as a kid. And actually, I did find out. I remembered, and I went back and did exactly that. And doing this, and sort of as a grown-up person, seeing that yes, although we are grown up, we can still realize our dreams and make them come true. That was the greatest experience ever.
And what did you discover? What was the thing that really inspired you?
Well, the thing, first of all, the question I was asked, which sort of triggered this, was the question by a woman from Dublin who said if I could remember my childhood dream, right? What I was dreaming when I was a child, what I wanted to become in life. And I had no clue. Sitting in Dublin in a business meeting, answering that question, I said, Kathy, I don't know. But as I said, I decided to discover that. And when I did dig back in my memories of my childhood, interesting enough, the memories from South Africa came back. And I saw myself in that memory after some soul searching. I saw myself standing in front of my parents and saying, when I grow up, I want to become a ranger in Kruger Park, which is a big nature reserve in South Africa. And my parents giving me this look of, our little girl, yeah, right. And but in that second, I really believed and really felt so happy with the thought of, being in nature and tracking lions and searching for elephants and all of this, that made me very happy at that point. And since more than 30 years had passed since that dream, here sitting in Berlin in my office, coming back from Dublin, I decided this is exactly what I'll do. So I did go back to South Africa. I did become a ranger in Kruger Park. I did write a book about this so great experience. And it was the best time ever I had as a grown-up person.
So if it was that good, why are you still not doing it now?
It's a difference if you have a dream and want to pursue it and live it, or if you want to completely change your life towards that passion. And, the passion for nature and for especially South African animals is not my only passion. My passion is inspiring people and doing leadership talks and traveling the world, etc., etc. So my passion is not to sit 365 days in a camp in South Africa guiding tourists. But yes, my dream was to be able to do this and experience this great nature as a ranger and learn all the things about lions and giraffes and rhinos. And I did do exactly that. And the most beautiful moments with those great animals happened exactly there. And those experiences, this is why it's so important to follow your dreams, make you very strong about your life, about everything you do. And you all of a sudden you realize you can live your life very passionate, which doesn't mean that every dream you had you have to sort of live off that dream, but you should tap into it and experience it. Absolutely, yes.
I love that story. So what fantastic elephant fact or giraffe fact did you learn out there that you thought, I really didn't know that?
Oh my God, David, so many. Actually, I realized how limited my knowledge was. When you grow up, all of a sudden you have a tendency of thinking, oh my God, I know so many things. When I came back to South Africa, all of a sudden I realized I don't hardly know anything. I couldn't name the 1,000 birds that are flying around in Kruger Park. I didn't know how many stomachs a giraffe has and how long it takes an elephant to digest his what he feeds on, etc., etc. So I hardly knew anything, but I think especially for adults, this is a perfect experience to step out of your comfort zone, out of the rituals and all the knowledge where you feel secure in, okay, especially if you're a boss of a company like I am, and all of a sudden you're a student again. You know, you don't know anything. You have teachers, you have to rely on them. And I soaked in all the knowledge about elephants and everything. And my biggest takeaway from South Africa was something that I adapted to my job right when I was back. And this is why my book was called The Wisdom of the Elephants. It's not in English, unfortunately. I have to say it right away. It's just in German, but it will come in English someday. It's another dream. But the biggest knowledge I took away was the wisdom of the elephants. And I got that wisdom when, sort of the wisdom jumped at me, I have to say. I was walking with a ranger through the grass, and we watched a herd of elephants. And an important task for a ranger is to be very, very, how do you say in English, very much within the present. You know, you have to realize exactly what's going on. You have to realize how the wind is, what it smells like, where the sun stands, etc. All those things that as a corporate person that I was, you know, all the things I watch is my BlackBerry and my emails and my Facebook. And, you know, I was not at all into looking at the details of my surrounding. But there as a ranger, you had to do exactly that. And when we did that with a herd of elephants, I realized together with my ranger who led me that day that if you look at the leader of the herd of elephants, which is a female, you realize that every couple of minutes she like freezes in what she does. If it's feeding or playing or drinking water, it's like, you know, in Germany, there's a game. You count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and everybody has to sort of freeze and not move at all. And this is what the elephants do for just a couple seconds. And the ranger asked me if I saw that. And I said, yes, but why is he doing that? And he said, this is to focus on nothing else but your herd and on the surroundings. So why she does that is, in Germany, we call it innehalten, is to rest, to focus on your senses and realize, where's my herd? Where are they? How far away are they from me? Is there danger in the surrounding? Is there a lion approaching? How does the herd feel? And how do I feel myself? And when I saw that, all of a sudden I realized what a stupid, small vision corporate leader I was, because I didn't realize any of that. I went into meeting rooms not having a clue how my team felt, because I was so busy with my BlackBerry, with my papers, with my schedule, with my everything in my head. But this is not what's important for the elephant cows. For the female leader of the herd, very regularly, every couple minutes, she focuses on her surrounding and on her herd. And this is what I got, what I call the wisdom of the elephants, is every now and then do nothing, put away your BlackBerry and focus on yourself and the group you're with.
That is a brilliant story, and that touches on so many of the people that I have been speaking to, that they start their morning with 15 minutes of quiet, and they get up and they sit and they don't put their Blackberries on, their emails or whatever, and they just reflect on what they need to do for the day. And it's that ability, isn't it, to just stop and pause life that allows you breathing space and thinking space to be able to, I suppose, create a better future. But for so many of us, we're in a rat race and things are just happening all the time, constantly. So we can't work at our best. So I can see why the wisdom of the elephant was so important to you. And I can also see why you suddenly assessed your own personal situation by something that seemingly seems so simple but is so powerful.
Yes, I completely agree. And unfortunately, sometimes when I watch young people, you know, on the train or out on the street in cafes, I do get worried, because just like we adults, you know, with all our office crap and our running around and schedules and emails, they hang onto their phones, their smartphones, their iPads and all of that. And I don't want to sound like a nagging, you know, oh, personally, put away that iPad. Not at all. My fear is that they miss out on other things that are so important and so beautiful to realize. You know, the expression on your friend's face, the feeling of how, what kind of surrounding I'm in, which kind of city, because I love technology. I'm online 24 hours a day. I don't even switch off my smartphone in Germany at nighttime. So I'm one to talk, but every now and then I explicitly put the phone away. I put it in silent mode. I don't even look at it, but I focus on, real life, real people, real smiles, real touch, real challenges. And all of a sudden I realized the world does not happen within those couple inches screens of the smartphones and the iPads. There's a world out there, and we have to go out there and have to encourage young people every now and then, to step out of their virtual things and reach out for real people with real experiences.
I've got daughters, and basically they will come out of their bedroom on their phone and they go into the bathroom. And I say, what do you need the phone for in the bathroom? Yeah. And then they come out and they've still got it in their hands, and they're basically kind of just looking down at their square all the time. I'm a bit older. I'm 44 years old, and I've said this numerous times in many of the shows, but I don't have a mobile phone or anything. I don't have a tablet. So I sit in front of a PC and I do this. And when I switch the PC off, that's it. It's gone. I can't check emails. I can't check Facebook. I can't check anything. I'm totally off the grid. And one of the things that I've realised is when I'm meeting people in the evening, they're always on time for me, because they can't text me and say, I'm running 10, 15 minutes late. If they say 8 o'clock, they're there at 8 o'clock. And I found with a lot of people with phones and stuff, because they've got that ability to connect easily, actually is a development of tardiness. And they can always be 10, 15 minutes late because they can get in contact and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm very aware of that ability to be able to switch off. And it's something that I will never go into. And no matter how much pressure I get, I'm very aware that I like to turn it off and then, go and look at clouds or something, or walk around looking at some sheep. So you're inspiring leadership qualities of nature. It's fascinating, this, because I do the introduction and I kind of do some virtual stalking and I look around the web trying to find some information about you. But it is fascinating. One of the first things that I read about you was your childhood time of endless joy and adventure, and it's when you discovered the inspiring leadership qualities of nature. And now that was as a child. And then you go back into the Kruger Park and then you discover the wisdom of elephants. And now you're sort of looking at that in your own life. So as a child, can you remember when you actually thought of the inspiring leadership qualities of nature, and what does that actually mean?
I think as a child, I wouldn't have called it leadership quality of nature. I called it like this as an adult. But what I felt as a child was this endless power and beauty and grace that those animals, and it doesn't matter if you look at an elephant, a leopard, a lion, or whatever, they have, and how many qualities they have that we as humans are unable or unwilling to follow by. I want to give you an example. As a child, I love big cats. As a child, and even today as an adult, I love lions. To watch them, how they feed, how they get the prey, etc. So big cats are my absolute favorite, besides of the elephants. And if you look at them, how they lead their life, you will realize that most of the day, everybody talks about the kings of the jungle, like the lion. But if you really look what they do all day, is most of the day they sleep, right? They rest in the shade of a tree. And then when they decide, and usually the women, by the way, make the decision that it's time to go hunt, they do most of the hunting anyways. And so they give one another a sign. Usually one gets up, sort of looks at the others, and all of a sudden 6 or 7 females get up and they know it's time to go out and hunt. So they go out and hunt, and this kind of teamwork that they show, if you watch that closely, knowing exactly who's leading the attack, who's on the left side, who's on the right side, who is sort of in the back, and how they circle the animals they're chasing, etc. So those great tactics, but also this great teamwork, where sort of blindly they know exactly what the other cat does, and then the clear focus when they finally attack is so great to watch. And, I'm working with corporate teams all over the world. And I can tell you, I hardly ever seen such good and excellent teamwork within corporate teams. And why is that? Because often humans, and we have that, everybody has it, if we're honest, we don't want to talk about our weaknesses. We are not open in showing, the other one what we, are sort of our weak sides. But lions, they have to do that because the attacks are so so bold and so strong, so they can't put somebody in the front, a lioness in the front row that, for example, isn't a good speeder, right? So each lion has its specific task and specific position, and you can only do that if you know about the weaknesses of your partner. So, and this, for example, is one point where I think we can learn a lot from animals. For example, really, how to detect the good and the bad sides. There's not even sort of value. It's just understanding who you're working with and who you're with, and then you reach your goal in a much better way.
So do you believe personally and in corporate land that we should focus more on our strengths than our weaknesses? Or do you think that we should talk about our weaknesses and bring them up to a higher level?
I do believe in playing upon your strength, because we have so many strengths in us. If we all use them already in a good and bold way, we have already a perfect life. But I also believe in that weaknesses should not be covered up. That weaknesses should be accepted as how do you say this in English? As a regular and completely normal side of each person. And it's important to show them, because only like this, if we talk about excellency, with the clients I work with, they talk about, they need excellency in order to perform in their industry. So they don't want to produce mediocre products. They want to produce excellent products. So how do you reach excellency? By not covering up your weaknesses, but by having excellent teams.
Yeah, I can see that. So what you're saying, you find out the weaknesses of people, you find out the strengths, and like a jigsaw puzzle, you move it all together, but one complements the other, and then you get a stronger unit.
Exactly. And I think the easiest way to really see that is often in nature. And by the way, not just in Africa. I was sliding with huskies. Or is that called sliding? When you go on
sledging.
Sledging. So each husky, the guide knows exactly about the weakness and the position of each husky. And not every husky that is a leader is supposed to be running in the first position. Somebody is much better, on the left side of the sledge, or on the right side, or in the back. So putting your team together in the best way possible in order to reach where you want to go was a great experience. And by the way, all those huskies were so cute and such great dogs. So I loved them all, but you have to look behind the facades of things. And humans are much more into showing a facade of, eloquence and beauty and smartness and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is much more important.
You seem to me, from talking today, somebody who likes sorting out puzzles. You like to organise and structure and put things together. Is that right? Because I'm getting right back into the stereotype again. The stereotype from the sort of United Kingdom of Germans are that you're very analytical and you're very efficient. And the fact that this is about my 150 show and you were the first person to ever contact me early. I'm normally here waiting, and you contacted me, and it was like, oh, hang on, I'm not quite ready here at the moment. Is that part of your character? Do you like that? Do you like that kind of organisational side?
I have to smile, because when I pushed the call button and I saw it was 3 minutes early, I was smiling at myself, because it's typical me. You're absolutely right. I am a very in-time person. And I'd rather be there before the time is than too late, because being too late, I feel stressed by that, and it takes away strength. That I would like to start a talk like this feeling relaxed and being joyful and having some thoughts beforehand. And so this is why I'm always in time. But talking about the stereotypes of the Germans, yes, I know about this efficiency thing and the organizational things that you said. But you know what? I hate organization. I could not live my life, my organizational corporate life, without a perfect secretary who, puts all the papers in order and has all the filing and knows exactly my appointments and all of that. So my small own organization, the only thing that organizes me is my iPhone. That's it. If what's not in the iPhone, if it's a contact or a meeting, I am lost. So sorry, in that aspect, I'm not German, but yes, I am in time.
Damn, you've ruined it.
Sorry.
I've got to assess 30 years of stereotypes in one foul swoop.
Well, so, we all have a chance to learn, right? We said that already.
Absolutely. So what frightens you? Because you seem uber confident. You've had so many different experiences. You seem to be a lady who is willing to push against your comfort zone and do things out of the norm because they're right for you. So what actually scares you?
Well, that's a good question. I remember when I decided to do the Ranger course in South Africa, I was all of a sudden rethinking various things. For example, when you do a Ranger course, you have to sign that if something happens to you, and you have to make a written form, if something happens to you, that you won't sue them, because the camps are without fences, and of course there are lions and hyenas and dangerous animals, snakes and all that. They are so, and having to deal with, for the first time in my life, with the thought of, oops, something could happen there to you. You could get terribly sick, you could die actually in an attack. That did scare me a lot. And I realized that life can end very fast. And I did see, in nature, that's a good thing too, because you see that, you watch a beautiful animal standing in the sun on the perfect terrace of grass, and there's a nice river in the back and sunshine. All of a sudden, boom, a lion comes up. You haven't even seen the lion, and that's end of life. So the intensity and how fast it can happen, that did scare me, and it made me realize that, and in that aspect I might be a bit German. I have to think about it, and I have to sort of prepare that what I want to have organized if this happens. So I did write, for the first time ever before I left for this Ranger course, I did write a final will, which was a scary thing.
But in your heart of hearts, you kind of know that nothing bad's going to happen, don't you? But it's that mental fear which stops so many people doing stuff generally, doesn't it? Where they kind of think, no, if I do this, that's not going to work, and this isn't going to work. I just stay where I am.
Well, in the heart of the hearts, I know that whatever you do, life can end in the next minute. When I was young, I had a very close friend of mine. We were both maybe 16. It was the time of parties and going out in the evening and not really feeling very comfortable in going to school, etc., etc. And this friend died in a motorcycle accident on her Vespa in Munich. And I remember thinking in that second, this can't be. She had her whole life still in front of her, and we were dreaming of traveling to Paris together when we were older, etc. So we were very close. And when I think of her today, I realize that life has to be lived in the day when you live. It doesn't matter how old you are, and mistakes can happen wherever and whenever, and also, of course, really bad things like injuries. You get sick or you die. So I'd rather die, and I thought that when I went to South Africa, I'd rather die following my dream than sitting in my office and knowing that I haven't lived my life at its fullest potential.
Absolutely. Right? If you read the classic book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he makes a point that for certainly men, I can't remember if it was for ladies as well, but for men, more men become millionaires from the age of 40 to 65 than at any other time in their life, because when you're younger you think you've got all the time in the world, and as certainly from the men's point of view, when you're younger you're looking after ladies and chasing after ladies and everything is that kind of sort of side of things. And once you get to 40 you suddenly go, oh my god, where's my life gone? What's happened to the last 20 years? I better get going. And you sort of crack on. And you do realise that life can start at any point, but it's totally down to you to start it happening in your regard.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing for women. When you reach a certain age, and I remember when I was young and looking at my own parents, and when my mom was 40, I remember her 40th birthday, I thought, oh my God, this is so old. And I even told her that on her birthday. And today I know, it's not a nice thing to say towards a woman that just turned 40. But I remember thinking, God, this is like so far away. And, today I sit here being 44, sitting, oh my God, being 20 is so far away. But what have I done since then? How many dreams have I pursued, and how much have I taken the opportunity to learn and grow? And I know we'll get to that later on, but joining those dots is such an interesting thing. You just want to make sure when you're young that the dots that you realize that everything you do is a little dot, a little step in your life. And at the end, no matter, if it's 26 or 80 when you die, at the end, those dots will be combined. I always picture that there is a clear moment before I die, like a couple seconds or something, where I always envision it like this, that before every person dies, that they have a very clear view on their life. And this clear view is not judgmental or negative. It's nothing. It's neutral. And you see very clear what you've did, and you know exactly what you always wanted to do, but you haven't done, the opportunities that you've missed, the excuses that you haven't made, the loved ones that you didn't care for, and whatever. And you see it very clearly, but there's nothing you can do anymore about the situation. So those split seconds, I imagine, they pass, okay, and you're dead, because those split seconds are over, and you were in the process of dying anyways, and that's it. So I want to make sure during my lifetime that when those seconds come up, and it could be, in the next 5 minutes, I can't even end that interview, but if those seconds come up, I don't want to see a lot of dots in my life where I think, Jesus, you shouldn't have done that, and you should have made that excuse, and you should have gone to that place, and you should have followed that passion. And yes, for going to Africa for me was definitely a thing I had to do, because in those split seconds when I die, I would have thought, Jesus, you never became a ranger. You just became a business person and a TV commentator and an author, which is all fun and nice, but in those split seconds, you see exactly what you've missed out on. That's how I imagine death.
Yeah, I've spent my life just doing stuff. And this is the first time that I've done anything that follows my passion. And since I've opened the door on my passion, I can see just the world. And the fact that I'm having conversations with yourself and some of your friends and colleagues and the people who are out there that are doing stuff that I just wasn't aware that you could even do it before. I just assumed that you went off to London and you worked in an office and you come home every day and that was it. But now I'm seeing a totally different world. I don't want to waste any more time. And I suppose if I'm on my deathbed, I would just like to have the very first, the last two words I think I would like to say with a smile is, I'm finished. And basically, there's nothing that I wanted to do that I haven't done. And I think that would be quite a nice way to just sort of drift away.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's play the words of Steve Jobs, because this is really the theme of the show, join up dots. And we've already touched on many of your dots already, but I am fascinated whether you can actually connect them dot to dot to dot. So I'm going to play the words of him, and then afterwards we're just going to have a quick chat. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So do those words resonate with you, Kerstin?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think he's absolutely right. And I think we've touched upon that earlier. From when you look back, you see a line between all of your dots, and I can see that in my own life. Absolutely.
And is there a big dot? Is there many of the conversations I have, somebody has a big dot that they actually go, no, that was dreadful. That was a terrible time in my life. You know, I've had people say to me that, and I've mentioned this a few times because it kind of shocked me when they were saying this, that they have been in a car just about to commit suicide and something happened and they realised that, no, I can't do this. And they say to me, that was the worst day of my life and the best day of my life. So it can be very black and white. Do you have any moments that you look back and go, yes, that was when my real self was born. That's when I found myself?
I think the finding of yourself is a process. At least with me, I didn't have a big dot where all of a sudden I realized, oops, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I'm going to do. I don't have that, but I have various big dots when I look back that I can combine and all of a sudden understand why I need to continue to follow my passions. My first big dot happened when I was a baby, actually. I was born by a mother in Munich that gave me away right after birth. So I was an adopted child for my parents, and I didn't know for a long time. But I always had felt deep down the feeling of, first of, those people that are my parents are so different from me. I am different, okay, which makes you very lonely. I was very lonely as a child. And the first time when I came to South Africa, and I guess that was my second big dot, I wasn't lonely anymore because in my external world of nature, of animals, I felt so much love and happiness that it soothed my inner whatever was hurt there through the loss of my mother. And the next big dot for me was proving success. I was when I was like 20, so driven, with university and career and opening my business. And my biggest goal was to drive a Porsche before I hit 30, because I thought, over 30 is so old. So I wanted to have it before I'm 30. And I did that, and I got the Porsche, and I got the companies, and I still went for the next dot. And the next dot was a very different value in my life, which had nothing to do with money or career, but inner joy and passion. And this is why I guess I went back to South Africa, realizing, Jesus, the corporate world can learn so much from those beautiful animals, and coming back and deciding, I'm going to leave the typical corporate world and become an author and speaker. And this is the dot I'm in right now, where I say, this is what I want to do in the future, and no more other stuff, because time is, as you said, David, time is, might end for me. Or how did you say it? It's getting closer, and how much time do you still have? So I will make sure that the next dot is standing on a stage talking to thousands of people and giving them what I have to give to them.
And is there a constant need for people to get what you have to give to them? Because I'm very aware that what I'm doing on a daily basis is kind of in the self-development world. I'm talking about hope and opportunities, and people are emailing me saying that they've listened to this show and that show and it has changed their lives and stuff. And part of me is really pleased about that, and the other half of me thinks, there's so many people out there that are getting up on stage and presenting or writing books, and it's kind of just going on bookshelves, or it's going through somebody's ears, and it doesn't really find that key that starts the life like you would want and I would want, and everybody that writes these books and stuff wants. Self-development in so many ways just seems to whiz past the person that you're aiming at. Do you find that?
No, David, I think that even if you just touch one life, just one, if just one person writes you and said, I listened to your podcast and it changed my life, I think the self-improvement, or how you call it, is worth it. And yes, there are thousands of books on the bookshelves and thousands of whatever courses and classes, but I think every person has their own story and their own magic formula of because they are who they are, and they have, if they give that, it will resonate with some people, not all of them. But every book on those shelves will find a couple of people whose life is really a better life, and they go for their passions and they fulfill their roles in a society that needs change. I mean, let's be honest. We don't want our world to continue like it is right now. Nature dying, so millions and millions of people in poverty, girls that are not allowed to go to school to learn. There's so many injustice in our world. We want young people to grow up that change that get a more fair, a better, that create that better place. And how will they do that if they don't follow their own talents? They can't. So I think go for it, get all the self-improvement that you can get, rely on yourself and go for it, because we need a different world. But you and I, David, we're in the mid-40s. We can only do a couple more years, 20 years, whatever, and then, that's it. So the next generation will take over, and we better make sure that they take over in the mood of, hey, we know who we are, we know all the things we can do, and we have the power to change this.
I'm going to be doing this for 50 years. I'm not doing it for another 20 years.
Well, good for you. I'm so happy that you do it for me. I don't know how long I'm going to do it, but I know that the messages are needed by people. And on the other hand, as I said, I think we, as the overall global society, we need every person we can get to make this world a better place, because there's so much to do.
Absolutely. The last question I'm going to pose to you just before I send you back in time to have a one-on-one on the Sermon on the Mic is, do you, from the bottom of your heart, believe that everyone out there can have a real kick-ass life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody can, but the question is not if they can. I think the question is, do they think they can? And a lot of people out there think, I can't do that. So the question is not if they can. The question is how they can, and that they trust and that they believe in their self. And looking back and combining my notes, I can tell you, every of you listeners, I never thought I could do the things that I did. Build companies, sell companies, buy that stupid Porsche before I'm 30. I didn't become a ranger in Africa. It was just a dream. But I went for all this and I did it. And it wasn't so complicated. If you get to do it, if you make yourself do it, once you're on the way, you get it.
You're inspiring, you are. Right, I'm going to send you back in time now, and this is the part of the show that we call the Sermon on a Mic, and this is when the music plays and you get transported back to your younger self. And if you could have a one-on-one with the younger Kerstin, what age would you choose and what would you tell her? So we're going to find out, because when the music fades, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
When I go back in time, the Sermon on the Mic, I would like to choose a time in my life that was a happy time, but thinking back, I think the most the time that made me the most and has carved who I am most was a very unhappy time in my life. That was a time when I was a baby. And although I can't remember it, which is probably good, because I know I wasn't happy because of the separation of my mother. But what I would tell myself then is, it doesn't matter how much loss you feel and if you can explain it or not, because you still feel lonely and sad and just very alone, I would tell myself, you are loved. You know, there are people there. I had the luck of, parents that adopted me. They loved me in a different way than I would think that parents should love, but they loved me. And there are people out who respected me and who gave me so much help. So I would tell myself, relax. There is so much love for you and so much acceptance. You can be just who you are. So go your way and have trust. Don't get overwhelmed by the pain that you feel and by the loneliness. Just relax, because you know you are good. And there are people and things around you that will support you and carry you all the way on. And you'll come to a time in your life when there's much more sun and when you don't feel lonely anymore. And you all of a sudden realize, Jesus, I can do things, I can create things. Whatever it is you want to create. I can create jobs, I can buy beautiful things, I can travel the world, and all of a sudden you realize, Jesus, life is good. Life is great. And I would tell myself, even if you feel sad now and lonely and bad and you think you can't do it, relax and just keep going. The love is there around you, and once you find it within you, you'll be all set for a great life. And this is what I would wish you and what I would have told myself as a baby.
Kerstin, how can our audience connect with you?
Write me an email. I'm on the web, of course, being a web addict. It's mail@kerstinplehwe.de, and I know, Ralph, David, you will publish all the infos. Just send me an email. I'll be happy to connect with everyone and share and inspire. And if I can give any help or inspiration, please let me know. I'd love to connect.
Kerstin, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots of your life. Please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts, it's the best way to build our futures. Kerstin Plehwe, thank you so much.
Thank you, David, and all the best to you, your show, and your audience. I'd love to be here.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.